Good night and welcome to another edition of In Touch with me, Jadia Jn, Pierre Emmanuel. I trust that you had a wonderful weekend and a great start to this week. I want to welcome you to another program. Thank you so much for joining us. Let someone know that the program is on. We are streaming live on www.choice39.tv. Tonight, my guest is Mr. Perry Thomas, and he's the coordinator of the National Initiative to Create Employment, NICE. I believe every St. Lucian has heard of NICE. Some of the comments have been positive. And obviously, some of the comments, most of them political, have been negative. Tonight, we'll be discussing the program. By now, you would know that the program was launched in June 2012. So I believe we have had sufficient time to assess the program, to get a sense as to where and who are the individuals most impacted by the program. We will hear from the coordinator on the various components of the program, and of course we'll be focusing on opportunities, because there are still opportunities for employment, and we will also get an opportunity to take in your calls and your comments closer to the end of the program. Without any further delay, I want to welcome Mr. Thomas. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, JJ. Thank you for being here. I'm happy to be here, actually, and I'm happy to discuss any issue concerning NICE, let the general public be aware of the initiatives that we are doing, the beneficiaries, how they are behaving out there, the impact the program has on the various persons, especially those receiving care, those who are employed, and generally the benefits of the program across the board, especially to the families that whose parents or daughters or sons are actually employed by the program. So I'm happy to be here to discuss any issue.
I'm sure you would expect that the program would be in the public's eye a lot. The program, in the sense that it was both from the Blueprint for Growth of the St. Lucia Labour Party, a campaign promise in response to the very high unemployment rate at the time. We have seen a number of jobs created through NICE. I would like to get the numbers from you, because this would give us a sense as to whether we are achieving the objectives of this program, and whether you believe that you are meeting the mark. For example, the Prime Minister indicated in his address when he introduced and launched NICE that in the first year would seek to create 2,000 jobs. How are we doing in terms of the job counts?
Well, what we have done, and a good thing you mentioned the Prime Minister's address in the initial year, because when he spoke of the 2,000 jobs, that we surpassed the target, actually, almost to the point where we almost landed 3,000 persons at the time within the first year. And as we went along, we trotted, gingerly in the beginning, because we were getting our feet wet. And when we took up steam, basically to date, we can talk about almost 6,000 people having benefited from NICE. And we have done so from various initiatives. And as I remember in the beginning, when we spoke, we said that we will use every creative method whatsoever available to us for us to do so. And one of the things I want the general public to know, and that is creating the idea, the whole ethos of creating jobs, it's not a one-time thing. It's a continuous process. It is not just sitting down there and say, okay, this is the initiative, this is what we are going to be doing between now and the end of 5 years or 3 years or 2 years. When you put forward initiative, it doesn't mean that it ends there. You have to go on to create other initiatives. And so it is reflected in what NICE has done over the period that it has been implemented. And one of the hallmarks of this process is that within the staff of NICE, we always have a discussion on the possibilities of creating an opportunity. And even when suggestions are made to us, we thrash it out. And so as we go along, NICE in itself, meaning the national initiative, we take on the word national to mean bringing as many suggestions in as possible and discussing it among our staffs. Even I'm taking to the suggestions that whether various agencies may have suggested one or two things, we do have discussions with them. And we are very happy to say to the general public that when we speak of NICE taking on the initiative of a new initiative, it means that we have had dialogue. We did not just sit down there and just pull it out of the sky. We have had dialogue. So many of the initiatives that we have implemented, it has gone through the process of having dialogue. We have gone through the process of passing a fine-tooth comb in it. We are not saying that each initiative is 100%. There's always room for for growth.
One of the criticisms is that NICE is nothing but step under a different name. People are saying that this is not sustainable, this is temporary. We're providing people opportunities for a short term, and by the end of the year, these individuals would be out of a job and would have to start all over. Under the various programs and opportunities available under NICE, do we have any individuals, for example, say, who would have been employed on the NICE from 2012 up to present, or is it a constant rotation of individuals where they are only able to or allowed to work for a short period?
Well, one of the things I must say, and that has always been a question that has come up, and that is we have done a combination. Because there are some initiatives you cannot rotate staff, and I'm saying that in light of the actual employment. Take, for instance, it's the government's policy to ensure that the whole delivery of the birth certificate system, is improved, that the timeliness of your birth certificate is not going to take you 24 years or 6 months. So therefore, you cannot rotate people within that framework, because the success of the implementation of that policy meant that you need the institutional memory to remain within the Ministry of Home Affairs or Legal Affairs to ensure the delivery happens. And so we have actually kept those persons on board for the last 3 years to ensure that the implementation of the government policy of wanting to see the whole reformation of the whole civil status registry and how the delivery of birth certificates are being done. And also, I want to share that at this point, because it was not done in isolation. We were on the heels of the passport recall, right? Now, you could not have done the passport recall independent of reforming the birth certificate system. And therefore, the two went hand in hand. So we also supported the passport recall, and that is the immigration department with the necessary staff.
So there are NICE staff at the immigration department as well?
Yes, they are.
Indeed.
So there is a symbiotic relationship between the civil status registry and the immigration department. Hence the reason why today people speak of the birth certificate, the receipt of the birth certificates in a much shorter period. And as we go along, one of the hallmarks of that whole initiative is that the transfer of the information into a digital form that will allow for the birth certificates to be issued much faster. And that is an ongoing process. And the Ministry of Legal Affairs and Home Affairs, together with the Civil Status Registry staff, they have been working at it along with the support that we have given them. And I am very proud to know that they have done well. The reports that have been given to me by the Permanent Secretary and the staff, they have done tremendously well.
We hear a lot about the relationship between NICE and the public sector. What about the private sector? Because my understanding too is that there should have been interaction between NICE and the private sector to seek to address various areas where, for example, there would be a need for employment, but there was not a capacity to employ these individuals. What is happening between NICE and the private sector? Okay,
we approached on two fronts. One was that we gave the private sector the support in terms of what we call the PSPA, the Private Sector Partnership Arrangement, in which we would have supported the individual firm and the employment of individuals by 60%, and the firm would then support the other 40%.
40%, yeah.
So it was a 60-40 relationship. And we did that, and we were able to speak of a retention rate within 60 to 62% of the persons that were engaged. However, I must admit that this is one aspect we have now taken on board and decided in this year that we go forward more strongly with it, and to focus within the productive side of the private sector. So we are going along that line, and so far, what with the interest that has been shared in that the PSPA, it's growing and it's tremendous. And so we have to look at every request on a case-by-case basis. And it is important to note that, and for those firms that are listening now, that the PSPA is designed to encourage new employment. And that is one of the reasons why we are saying we look at every request on a case-by-case basis.
But there has been a lot of discussion sometimes within the companies itself, where people would say, for example, I've been working at this company for 5 or 6 years. My salary, for example, is $800, but a NICE employee comes in to do the same thing that I'm doing, and I do not know if there's a minimum salary, for example, or a scale at the NICE office, but this individual will be earning $1,200 because of the 60-40 arrangement. And people are saying, well, this has caused, you know, some, you know, disquiet within some of the companies, or in some cases where NICE comes on to give the additional support, the dishonesty of some of the employers would lead to dismissals so that they can benefit from an arrangement where there is less burden on them. Have you been hearing some of these issues?
Well, we have heard that and plus more. But so what we have done in the PSPA is that it is done in terms of a remittance basis.
Okay.
Okay? And when a firm has gotten the approval from us, the conditions for the approval would include that, one, all regulatory requirements for paying salaries are in place, and that includes the NIS, meaning that the person's NIS must be paid before we can remit anything to you. So evidence of that is given to us. Additionally, the salaries of the individuals, and in this current, it's up to a maximum of $1,500. That 60% that we cover is up to a maximum of $1,500. So therefore, if somebody's salary, if the position that you are hiring is $100, we will only cover the $60 of that $100. The employer will cover the $40.
So the salary of the individual is set by the employer, not by NICE?
That's right, not by us.
Okay.
Right? We have just created the limit for our remittance, which is that 60% where we represented, it is represented at a maximum of $1,500. So we do not come and say to the employer, that is the salary. We don't do that.
One question I must ask you, do we have any university graduates on the NICE program?
Yes,
because
we do.
Again, people say that the NICE program is catering only to people who did not finish secondary school. Nobody in the private sector wants them, and they've been forced upon you know, the public service in various jobs.
Jadia, I'm happy you asked that question, because when we first started, everybody had the preconceived notion that NICE dealt mainly with entry level. We did not, and I said that in a program on, that NICE deals with unemployment across the board.
No matter where you fall.
No matter where you fall. Because unemployment does not only affect the entry-level position, it also affects a graduate coming from university, from Sahara Lewis, from secondary school, and even those who had not completed school. So it was across the board we were dealing with unemployment and not just entry-level.
Indeed. When we come back, we'll be discussing the whole financial aspect, how much it is costing us to run this program, what are some of the areas that we need to get some more information on already. I'm receiving your messages, but closer to the end of the program, I will go through them as we take your calls. Stay in touch. We'll be right back.
As caregivers, by virtue of participating in certification courses by SAHAFA and externally. So we have made room for that also, because at the end of the day, you have to, as I said, unemployment is across the board, and so we have to treat it as is. And we have to deal with it. The program in itself has done tremendously well, in the sense that when you look at the beneficiaries on the ground and what they are saying to you as a provider, likewise their family. Now, if you take that and put that on the side, now let us take it on a national level. The fact that we have had for years an aging population for which attention has not been paid to them, we are now doing that. And it means that we have made a significant stride in addressing a problem that has been festering. Now, one of the things, Jadia, that many people don't understand, and that is the whole Caregivers program is an initiative in preventative care, right? Because assuming that you had nobody caring for the elderly, at the end of the day, every elderly who falls sick goes to the hospital, or goes to the health center. We now have persons on the ground helping those persons. And it means that you have reduced the incidence of them having to go to the hospital.
And I understand that they're trained to administer medication and to do the blood pressure checks and so on.
Right? And I can share that with you. A number of persons who came into the program, knew nothing about blood pressure, how to calculate somebody's blood pressure. They didn't know how to do anything of that nature. But today they can speak boldly of having acquired the skill. Because before we send them out in the field, we ensured that they went through a formal training process. In addition to that, I want everybody to know that the training did not stop at the end of those 4 months. Training is ongoing because they have regular training sessions throughout the period. They have it here in dementia. They have dementia training here. They have another set of training with other groups in health aid. So there's always a refresher course for those that are out there. And we want to say to the families out there, we also would call on the families to, you know, create an avenue of support also, because the caregivers, they go beyond the call of duty.
Yes, I can attest
They
to
do.
that.
All right, and we can, I mean, in your program the last time, I think Sophia did very well in speaking to that. But I'm saying as a coordinator, and knowing what these caregivers have done, some of them are going beyond their call and their responsibility. And they have done well. And I remember visiting a client just last week who spoke so well of the caregiver that was assigned. And that they have, and in more ways than one, she's treated like family. Yeah. Right? So much so that one of the persons at the home was saying to Mr. Thomas, do not take her away from me. Right? We would like her to remain. But I had to say to her that I cannot guarantee that she will remain specifically at your house. But I can guarantee you one thing, that I will speak to her to visit you, you know, as often that she can.
I think one of the other components of the program that is not spoken about very much, but is just as impactful, would be the Family with Support program.
Indeed.
Because it has assisted many farmers to transform many farms that were abandoned before. For example, farmers have gone back on there and they're trying to, you know, be active once again, and you're providing that kind of support. Tell us a little bit about it. Are you providing simply the labor, or is it going further than that? It is
a program, and let me just share that again. Earlier I said the whole process of employment creation requires an ongoing, always thinking. So we sat back and we said, okay, listen, one of the largest sectors one of the sectors with the largest absorptive capacity, and that is the agricultural sector. And in looking at the agricultural sector, we spoke with the Ministry of Agriculture. We went out on having meetings with the farmers together with the extension officers in all the regions of the country. One of the things that came out of every single meeting was the whole idea that productivity is low. So we sat back and we tried to figure it out. We figured, okay, how do you address the question of productivity? You look at all the things that impact productivity, and one of the highlights was that persons were not spending sufficient time on the farm. So we developed the program such that we would provide the farmers with the labor, and the farmers in turn would provide the necessary inputs for the farm, because for the farmers, as they were saying, inputs were costly. Labor to them was prohibitive because of the cost of labor. And not only the cost of labor, the low productivity of labor was also called into question, because people were being paid $60 a day or $40 a day, and the day was starting at 6 in the morning and end at 10 or 11 o'clock. So how could you do so? So the program in itself came on board, and we provided the farmers with the labor, and these individuals are paid per hour. It is the farmer's responsibility to ensure that he records the time that they come and the time that they leave. So you get paid for the work that you do. In addition to that, every farmer had to meet a couple of requirements, because the program in itself has both male and female. I must say it is dominated mainly by the male, and we are happy that the males are participating in it. So the whole farm labor program has provided farmers with labor such that today the farmers can speak of the increase in production.
Yes.
And many of them can speak of that. And we did do a couple media medium news items to show how the farmers have been performing.
Yes, in fact, the review of the economy 2014 revealed that there were increases in production and, interestingly, too, increases in employment in the agriculture sector.
That's
and
right.
My mind immediately went to that farm labor support program, because we had farms that were abandoned becoming active again. There are so many other components of the program that we can touch on, but just to guide us on some of the other opportunities within you know, NICE, where people are employed, and what exactly it is that they do in the various communities around the island.
Okay, we have another component of the program is what we call the field maintenance, playing facilities maintenance. And these playing facilities maintenance officers are responsible for maintaining all the playing facilities around the country, the playing fields
They
that
do
you
a
see
great job.
cut on a daily basis, right, to allow the communities to play. And I'm going to say this, the impact that has had in terms of the successes. Now, I was going to bring in the coaching program one time, because the coaching program is also another component that we do alongside the Ministry of Sports and the Football Association. And these facilities, having been, you know, been cared for, has allowed for a number of coaching programs beyond just football, cricket, to take place in the communities. You go around in the communities nowadays and you just see on an afternoon the number of persons who are utilizing the facilities.
Yes.
And I remember looking at some photos of the fields in Miku, the height of the grass. They were taller than I.
Yeah.
And today, if you go there, you would never believe that was the field back then. And today I can say to you that these officers have done remarkably well. One thing I want to mention, in establishing those programs, we do not just establish it in terms of we have created the employment and finish. In the case of the field maintenance, we have taken many of the officers and put them back into training to learn how to maintain the equipment that they have. So should, for instance, the project ends, you now have the skill to open up your own maintenance shop, okay, to create some measure of employment for yourself. So they were trained in terms of small engine maintenance. So we do not just, we think beyond just the moment and to address the whole issue of sustainability. That was one of the things we did with them.
And I think it is something that I am seeing that is consistent across the board in NICE. And in my own mind, I think this would be one of the greatest advantages of being employed under this program.
That's right.
You are trained and you will be leaving with a skill. We're due for a second commercial break. When we come back, we'll be continuing our discussion and we'll be taking your calls and your questions as well. Stay in touch. We'll be right back. Welcome back to In Touch. In a moment, we'll be taking your calls and I will be reading some of your comments and your questions that I have been receiving via WhatsApp and email. Many persons would not know, Mr. Thomas, but the cruise ship employment program was actually born out of a collaboration between NICE and Springboard. Tell us a little bit about how it came about and what would have caused the government of St. Lucia to have the confidence that the program, of course, would have been a success to support it on a large scale as we're doing now.
Okay, one of in year one, we, as I said, we are always exploring opportunities, and we saw this opportunity with the Springboard Training Agency as one of the opportunities in terms of NICE partnering with the private sector. We had lengthy discussions on this initiative because it was a back and forth. In terms of, we saw the cruise ship sector as a sector that has the potential to create employment, yes. But we needed to identify from our end as NICE, what exactly can NICE contribute or bring to the table, okay, to ensure that the whole cruise ship thing takes off. So we had lengthy discussions, and what came out of it was that we recognized that NICE can participate in allowing every individual who got an opportunity, having been trained and secured employment, to get to the point of employment, because there was a gap. The gap existed between having completed your training, acquired the job offer, but you did not have the necessary means by which to get to the point of employment.
And that was the roadblock.
Right? So that was the roadblock. So therefore, in this year, in that year, we said, okay, let us try to fill that gap in. And we made available some $400,000 to fill that gap in, and we put it in through Central Development Bank so that these individuals can access it. So it became a revolving fund that allowed other people to access these funds. So the fund became the answer to those persons who were unable to get to the employment agency, because that the point of employment, sorry. So that money was made available to them to acquire the ticket to get to Barbados for the visa, to allow them to do their medicals, to get the ticket to leave St. Lucia to go to whether it was in the United States or in Europe, the boat was docked. It allowed them to do that. So they were able to fill the gap. And they would then sign an agreement with the bank for remittances to be sent back for the payment of the loan.
This program is a huge success. In fact, the Prime Minister spoke about it in his budget and indicated that he will be providing more support so that the program can be expanded. Very interesting how this relationship came about. I'm sure you've heard many persons are accusing NICE of being political. They say that once you are not labor, you will not get onto the program, and that NICE does not employ anybody who's UWP or LPM or all of the other parties that are out there. Walk us through the recruitment process. How do people get into NICE? Must you be recommended by your parliamentary representative, or can you simply walk in, complete a form? What do you ask? What questions do you ask? Do you ask religion, political affiliations, and so on?
No. Someone coming to NICE, anyone can come into the NICE office. Anyone can come and fill out an application. Anyone can submit an application. You could do it online, or you can walk into the office and fill out your application. When your application is filled, nobody asks you which church you go to, which bench you sit in, what color shirt you wear. We don't ask you that. That is not of our concern. Our primary focus is trying our best to create employment for those seeking employment. I would also say for persons who label NICE as being just labor, we have not, I mean, the persons who support the United Workers' Party are also employed by NICE. Some of those persons who are employed were recommended by members of parliament serving the opposition. We take it across the board. We do not, that's the thing, and I think I said that on a program before. We do not look at whether you're red or yellow. The crucial thing for us is filling in that space with the right person with the right skill. And that is important. Okay, for us, it is very important that we get the right person to fit the right job, because many persons come to us and they ask. One of the fundamental things, and I share it with the general public, is that one of the weaknesses we have found in St. Lucian, in interviewing the average St. Lucian, is when you ask the individual about their skills, some persons are shy to speak of what they can do. And I'm saying to St. Lucian now, you should not be shy, to speak of the things that you can do. Okay? Whether you are capable of doing pastry, whether or not it's what we call tablet by the road, it is the thing that you can do, you need to speak of, because these are your strengths, your skills. You must speak of them so that persons can confidently say, okay, this is your skill, let me match your skill to an opportunity, not to take on the role of mismatching, because mismatching can land us in serious problems. I
have found too that there are some individuals out there seeking employment. They come to you for assistance and you ask them, what do you want to do? And they say, I don't know.
Even that too.
Yes.
You hear, I don't know, or
anything.
Give me anything. Often enough, I said to them, if I were to give you anything, you wouldn't want it, right? And I am taken aback ever so often when I hear these things. But the thing is, it is a problem we have to address, and we need to do so. Whether we do it, and from our end as the NICE project, when we do training, there's something we do, what we call productivity enhancement training. And productivity enhancement training seeks to actually get persons to focus on these things, to address issues of that nature. And so we put that as part and parcel of our training initiative, and we are very happy that many people see the benefit coming out of it. Some people are slower than others, but they do catch on. And we want, I just want to say that we must not be afraid to speak of the things that we are able to do.
Yeah. I think it is a whole cultural issue, and
Yeah.
and I've said that before, that we do not know how to celebrate ourselves. We do not know how to celebrate each other, except in death, of course. So yes, we know everything about everybody, all the beautiful things about people once they have passed on. So maybe it is something. It is a cultural issue that it is a chain that we must break, really, so that we can begin to discover our talents, because some of us really do not know what our skills are. We do not know what our talents are. Some of us just do not know the power that lies within us and what we are able to do. One more issue before we begin to take our phone calls, and that is the issue of dealing with, you know, disciplinary matters. There is this view again that once something is run by the government of St. Lucia, financed by the government of St. Lucia, anything goes. And in the minds of some of these individuals, it does not matter how many times they breach a contract. It does not matter how many times they are late for work. It does not matter how many times they show up without a reasonable excuse. They are untouchable, and they ought not to be disciplined. They ought not to be dismissed. How do you deal with, firstly, does it exist? I don't know if that's a question, because I am certain that it exists, even though I'm not part of this program. And in the instances where issues would arise, is there a mechanism for dealing with it?
Okay. Jadia, I'll say to you that as a project involved in employment, we are not immune to that kind of behavior on the part of employees.
I figured.
Right? It's inherent in human nature that some of this happens. But as a project, we take performance seriously. You've got to perform on the job, right? We take it seriously. And therefore, when it comes to disciplining an employee, we do it within the confines of the law, and we do it very swiftly. We don't hesitate. And I'm happy you asked that question, because many persons will think that because it's a government-run program, that anything goes, anything doesn't go. Because what happens is that we do take on your performance appraisals. We do review every performance appraisal that comes to the office of every individual employed in the program, right? From the field maintenance officer to the person at the legal affairs office, to the person in the family labor program, to the person in the home care program. Wherever you are employed by NICE, we do require from the place of assignment a performance appraisal of the individual throughout the period that you are there. And therefore, we are able to look at that. If you're not performing,
and to address issues.
That's right. So we take it very seriously.
Because sometimes, you know, the performance appraisals are there with consistently low grades, but hands seem to be tied all the time, especially, you know, when you're dealing with the public service and all of that. We will be taking your phone calls. I know I've been getting so many messages, but if we could just go through some of the messages quickly, and then, you know, we can get in at least one or two phone calls. This individual says the NICE workers use weed eaters to cut grass on the ancillary playing field. Since it's upgrade, the field does not regain its stature since. Why don't the NICE workers be given lawn mowers to maintain fields like this playing facility? Okay,
in a case like that, I would say the facility is under the control of the council. Okay. The field maintenance, they work hand in hand with the council. And to the best of my knowledge, I think in ancillary, the lawnmowers are resident within the council. And therefore, the council and the field maintenance program are to work hand in hand. And if that is not happening, we then we'll have to look into it, because that is supposed to be the case, not any other way around.
I just got a message concerning employment in the health sector, and I know that this one will be outside of NICE and more directed to the Ministry of Health, and that is to do with individuals who have graduated with their nursing certification and are unable to find employment. My understanding is that there are individuals who have moved on from the Home Help for the Elderly program to go into mainstream Ministry of Health because they've gone on to do certification with Alpha Lewis and so on.
Well, I'm very happy you brought that up, because a number of persons from the Home Help program have graduated into the nursing program.
Nice.
They have gone on to nursing, and they are doing nursing currently, and we are very proud of them. But I also wish to mention that even the nurses that you speak of, when the nurses who graduated from Cuba came back, NICE was able to facilitate their internship program, right, and help them with their examinations.
Finally, when we come back, we'll be taking some of your phone calls before we end the program, so stay with us. We'll be back after this commercial break. Welcome back. Our telephone number is on the screen, so you can begin to call in with your questions or your comments. While we wait, a message says, good evening, Jadia and Mr. Thomas. From an employer perspective, I wish to applaud the government and the tremendous effort that Mr. Thomas outputs in his leadership position. We as business owners have benefited from this program in that at least 5 individuals from the NICE program have converted into permanent employees. Thanks and keep up the good work. Good night, you're on the air.
Yeah, good night.
Hi, good night.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question.
Sure.
To help me. I want a job with NICE, or I want NICE to help me out. Now, I did a course, a computer course at Nelsas. It entails Microsoft Word and Excel. So what should I do for you to assist me?
Sure,
at
thanks.
NICE? Mr. Thomas?
Thanks for that question. Mr. Thomas?
What you need to do is you need to pay us a visit in our offices where we can sit down and have a discussion with you, look at what you have done, right? Look at your employment history or your history of your experience, really. And then for us to be able to begin the process of looking to see whether we can get a placement for you, utilizing those skills that you have had.
Where is the office located?
And my office is located at Blue Coral, the 3rd floor. And you can do that anytime. You can come in and speak with the officers. We have the officers at the office. And if you wish to speak directly to me, you can set an appointment, which I generally see everyone on a Tuesday.
Well, I think you know what tomorrow will be like for you. Good night. Thank you for calling.
Hi. Good night, Mrs. Emmanuel. Good night, Mr. Thomas.
Good night, my dear.
I have an observation that during your discussion, a lot of what I'm hearing are skills and skills and skills. And I am very happy that not only are our citizens being given a job, but they're being trained. They have a trade. And I think that that is a very important thing. And I do hope that they take these skills, and as you mentioned earlier, that they can take those skills and actually create jobs for themselves. So I'm very happy for the skills that are being offered to our citizens. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you for that contribution. We continue to take your calls and your messages as well. Another message, and I think it would be the same thing that you just said to our caller a little while ago. Someone says that I've been applying for about 3 years and I have not gotten through. Are opportunities still available? And what can I do? Again, you can always go into the office. It is located at the Blue Coral Mall. Good night, you on the air. Hello, good night. Good night, thank you for calling.
Yeah, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, as Perry, that can you give us the story of a typical NICE worker? Because NICE has been under scrutiny and criticized heavily by a lot of persons. When you assess your typical NICE worker, what was that person doing before NICE? What kind of employment? How were these persons earning a living? Can you tell us the typical story of somebody before and after being employed in programs of this nature? Thank you. I'll listen off it.
Sure. Thank you for your question.
This question is very interesting because we speak of a typical worker, and in my mind, I'm rushing. In my mind, a number of faces just appear, and I'm saying that the average individual coming to my office or seeking employment at our office, right, is a young person, and they either have graduated in the last 2 to 3 years, and also you also have those persons who have been unemployed, right, in excess of 4 and 5 years. And these persons, a typical worker, would not have had a bank account. A typical worker would not have known what it is to pay NIS.
Wow.
A typical worker would not, in other words, they would have had the basic knowledge of how it is to behave on the job. And the typical worker at the end of the day would require some level of training or retraining. Now, I can take that is just the average. Now, if you were to break them down, and I mentioned about the NIS, and it is not something that is far-fetched. When I say to you and the general public that there are a number of people in our society who do not know what it is to have a bank account. Yeah. An employee under NICE is required to have a bank account. And if you speak to many of them, they will say to you they have never had a bank account. And today, they know what it is to go to the bank and sign a withdrawal slip. They know what it is to actually say, I have $50 in a savings account. And this is not something I'm creating or it is the reality.
I've heard the same about the STEP program too, because I think STEP moved away from, paying people by checks and so on, and you have to access your monies through the banks. And so people, and some of these individuals, they not even have ID cards, and had to get ID cards so that they can open up their bank accounts and so on. And these are things that we really take for granted.
We do take it for granted. And I'll give you one example, one thing, Jadia, that, and I want to share that also. We made it a fundamental policy requirement for the project that we are not going to do 3 and 4 deductions for people. Like send your money, one credit union here, the other there, and the other Bank of Nova Scotia Bank. We decided we are going to do one. You have to build within yourself the responsibility of taking care of your own funds, right? And therefore, persons were told that you give us the single bank account, right? And we do that for you. So people now have gotten...
I don't know how I'd survive on that.
No,
I could tell you.
Believe it or not,
you know what a month is like for me.
People have now gotten used to the idea that my money is coming to one account. Yeah. It is my responsibility now to take care of my bills. Okay? Not the nice office to make sure I pay costs. My insurance would lapse
for sure.
Or pay my insurance. And it is hard for some people, yes
I can
but
understand.
They have gotten used to it. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it takes a serious administrative cost to do that.
Yes, yes,
okay?
And which is something we don't consider too, which is something we don't consider. Let's see if we could get in at least two more calls. You can call in at 452-7347. And we will also continue to read your comments as well. This individual says, it is good to watch the program and to get something positive about NICE. For too long, I've been hearing that the NICE workers are lazy. They are simply people collecting monies with nothing to give in return. But as a NICE worker, I can say that this is not the truth. I know people say a lot about the home help for the elderly program and consider them to be the hardest working. However, there are other people working in various aspects as well who make great sacrifices to ensure that the workplace is different. In my case, I can tell you, and this is not a lie, that the NICE workers work even harder because we want, at the end of the day, to be kept, while some of the individuals who have been there for a very long time are very comfortable and do not feel that they have to work to keep their jobs. Good night, you're on the air.
Hi, good day, how are you?
Good, thank you.
This one in relation to the NICE
Sure,
program.
sure, go ahead.
I understood that you guys have got some money from Alba.
Yes.
Can you tell me when will the program resume, the NICE program resume? From what I heard from the budget presentation, that the money was received before the ending of the financial year.
Oh, we'll let Mr. Perry Thomas tell us a little bit more about that. Were there any programs that were suspended pending the receipt of funds? And if there were, when will these programs resume?
No, the project continued without an interruption.
Okay.
Okay? And if any program that was suspended prior to a decision we took just recently, not suspended, but is one that we took to reposition a particular initiative. Mm-hmm. It's not a suspension of the program, but we did that in order to reposition the initiative. We have never suspended NICE. NICE continued right through without any interruptions.
Okay, indeed. We'll take a final call. We'll take one more call and try to get in some of the comments. I'm trying to respond to some of the questions that I'm getting because, as you indicated, it would be visitors at the office for more information. Good night, you're on the air.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
I'm calling to query about the NICE contract.
Sure.
Because I'm understanding the individuals whose salaries have been reduced without contract. So you had individuals who were employed on the NICE previously. Up to recently, they have been called into the office. Their salaries are being reduced. However, they are being paid a reduced salary without a signed contract.
Which program specifically, so that we can have the coordinator address it directly? Are there any specific programs, or are you speaking about workers in general?
I'm speaking about workers in general. I don't, it's like the job placement?
Yes, okay. All right, sure. Salaries been reduced or reviewed?
It is interesting that the individual says salaries in general, and that is not the case.
Okay.
Right? I know the project has made some adjustments in terms of certain positions, and when you are facing resource constraints, you have to do what is necessary. And resource constraints would have demanded that we create employment in such a way that it continues the employment, not necessarily cut the individual off. As we often say, it is better that half a loaf is better than none. But we have not done what the individual has said in that form at all. And if we are going to do that, we would always...
But are the workers engaged? Because I would imagine
the workers are engaged.
Okay.
Right? It's not a matter of we have just taken people and say, we cut your salary. That's not the case.
Okay, because I got the sense from the caller that there was no consultation, because she's saying that there are no contracts and it has been reviewed without a contract.
Oh, no.
Okay, all right, sure. Again, for the individuals who are messaging me and asking what opportunities are available now, how can you benefit, the reminder is that you can call in to the NICE office. It is 468-2177. I remember this number clearly because once upon a time, NICE was in the office of the Prime Minister. So 468-2177 is the number to dial. The office is located at the Blue Coral Mall. Is it the third floor?
Third floor.
Third floor of the Blue Coral Mall, so you can go in to visit. As we close, just an opportunity for your final remarks.
My final remarks, I would like to begin by expressing the sentiments of many of the home help workers who said to Mr. Thomas, please do that. And that is, they want to say to many of the families who have actually supported them, thank you. And I also want to say thank you to the many persons who have actually called us in, expressed their thanks, and I want to say that NICE is very appreciative of that. Every member of staff who, at the office, who gets the thank you is very thankful. In addition to that, I also want to say that we will continue to do what we have been doing, and that is searching for ways to create employment. And we are going to continue doing that. We want to say to the general public that I know it's been a long time, many persons have not had an opportunity to earn a daily bread and they're unemployed, but that does not mean that it will remain so all the time. We are trying our best to ensure that every person who walks through our door, get an opportunity. Now, I also, in saying that, I just want to know, I want to leave that with the general public, saying that we are working assiduously to ensure that happens. So it doesn't mean that because we have not called you when you walked into the office a week ago, that means we have forgotten you. Remember, we have about 8,000 to 9,000 applications on our database right now.
I can imagine.
So it's a constant for us.
I can very
so
well
we are trying
imagine.
our utmost best. And we want to thank even the Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance for supporting us throughout that period, and we look forward to the continuous support. And we look forward to doing what we have been mandated to do.
Sure. Thank you so much for being on the program tonight. Very informative. I think there are so many aspects of that program that was not really exposed to the public. I want to thank all of our viewers. Thank you for calling. Thank you for sending your message. Again, remember 468-2177. This is the number for the NICE office. You can call in to find out what opportunities are available. Until next week, this is Jadia Jn Pierre Emmanuel saying good night and do have a pleasant and enjoyable week.